Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Boyd, and I work at AARP Vermont. Thank you so much for joining us today. First, I'm just going to talk a little bit about AARP, and then we'll jump into today's content. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit. Yes, it is a nonprofit, and it is a nonpartisan organization that's dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. The vision of AARP is to have a society in which all people live with dignity and purpose and can fulfill their goals and dreams. With a nationwide presence, including right here in Vermont or whatever state you're zooming in from, AARP works to strengthen communities and advocate for what matters most to older adults and their families with a focus on health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. Here are some examples of how AARP does that. AARP provides education on new laws, consumer fraud and scams, and retirement planning. AARP advocates at both the federal and state levels on issues such as Social Security, Medicare, prescription drug prices, and the cost of housing, transportation, and utilities. AARP builds community through programs, events, and local partnerships. And AARP works to make states more livable for all ages by supporting safe and walkable streets and age-friendly housing and transportation options. Additionally, through the AARP Foundation, there are 2 free volunteer-driven services: the Tax Aid Program that provides free tax support, and the Driver Safety Program that provides free classes to be safe on today's roads. To get more information and details about what I just shared and so much more, you can go to aarp.org. Today's virtual event is about building community, learning, and of course, some fun. To find future event opportunities from AARP Vermont, both in person and virtually, you can check our events page. If you're not based in Vermont, you can find event opportunities in your area on the local aarp.org page. If you're only interested in virtual events, you can explore AARP's Virtual Community Center. I'll put links to all these event resources into the chat shortly. Lastly, AARP has thousands of volunteers nationwide who donate their time and talent in person or from home to improve the lives of older Americans and their families. A special shout out to anyone on today's call that is a current or previous volunteer. We thank you so much for your time and your commitment to supporting your communities and partnering with AARP. If you're interested in learning more about becoming an AARP volunteer, you can go to volunteers.aarp.org. I'll also put this link into the chat. Before we begin, just some housekeeping items. I'm going to spotlight Julia shortly, so that should mean it's the largest screen on your window. If you have any issues with that, please put it into the chat. Let's see, it is being recorded and we will share it out via email in the next couple of days. And I will generate a document that has any of the resources put into the chat or most common questions that we discussed today. Again, for closed captions, you can click the Show Captions button on the bottom bar of your Zoom screen, and then you can adjust the size and color to make it work for you. If you have a question or comment, you're going to put that into the Q&A box. So not the chat, the Q&A. So the chat is disabled. If you need to communicate with me or have a question or a comment for Julia, put that into the Q&A box. So again, this is being recorded. It will be shared out via email. I will share out all the classes to date that we have, the recordings of the classes we have to date. And today is our final class in this series, but who knows, it was very popular. So hopefully we'll have some more coming up soon. So stay tuned. But thank you again for joining us. And now I'll turn it over to Julia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm excited to go over today's workshop and just kind of talk about finding your foundation and checking in with it. So a lot of what we're going to be doing today is building awareness. And so if you've been at some of the last meetings, I've done a lot more kind of like talking about education and understanding kind of the basics behind things. Today is going to be a little bit more practice where you're going to be involved doing some more things. So we're going to start by just kind of talking about why awareness is important and why we want to be building this. So one of the major things that I do is I work with people on awareness. So I am a personal trainer. I'm based in Burlington, Vermont. My name is Julia Fuller, and I really work with people to help them be able to move their best, live their life successfully without pain or as little pain as possible. I specialize in strength, biomechanics, and mobility. And so I'm really going to be kind of using those little pieces as we talk about today and get into the awareness piece and why that is important. So when I'm working with somebody that is especially new to movement, and even if they're not new to movement, a lot of the times I find that people are very not in touch with what's going on in their body. So that may mean I have somebody that is interested or they're going to be doing a movement and I ask them afterwards, well, how did you feel? What did you notice here? And I don't know, what was I supposed to feel? And so I started to realize that that was happening a lot. And so the more I've been trained, the more I've been working with people, the more I have been focusing on directing the intention as soon as possible so that people can understand what they're trying to do, as well as to build their awareness. So instead of just going through things, going through the motions, they're thinking about how they're going through the motions, how they're lifting something, how they're moving their body, rather than what it's supposed to look like. And so we are going to talk a little bit about ideals today and how you want to be feeling. But ultimately, understanding where you're at is the starting point. You have to understand where you are, what you're feeling in order to make progress. And with that, we are developing a deeper mind body connection. So we're really focusing on connecting the body and the mind and building that conversation so you can build more strength. You can focus on being able to get more out of each individual movement and become more efficient and stronger. So there are other things that come with awareness and the importance of it. So if you have any questions about why you would want to be building awareness, please put them in the Q&A. But other than that, we're going to get going and start talking and like doing some of the things and using movements to build that awareness. So first, what I'm going to have you guys do is just close your eyes. You're going to put one hand on your chest, about your heart, and one hand on your belly. So you're going to have one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, sitting comfortably. And I want you to just take some breaths in. We're going to be here for a minute or so. And so I want you to be just paying attention to what is happening with your breath while you are here. Where are you feeling the pressure against your hands? Are you feeling that in your chest? Are you feeling that in your belly? Are you feeling restricted anywhere? Are you feeling as though you could take deep breaths or shallow breaths? Is this uncomfortable or is this comfortable? It could be a variety of things. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to respond to this differently. So just recognizing how that breath feels, where you're putting the pressure. So as we take air in, as we breathe in, the air comes into our body and that creates pressure. And so as we are having that pressure move throughout our body, that's where we're noticing the expansion. So whether you have it in your chest or your belly. Now, if you are having more movement in your belly, just keep doing what you're doing. If not, and you're feeling a lot of movement in your chest, I want you to try to direct the air to your belly. So as you breathe in, I want you to think about expanding through your belly. And as you breathe out, pushing the air out using your belly. So contracting and pushing out. And you're going to go through that for a few times. This is called diaphragmatic breathing. And if this is a challenge for you, I do recommend working with someone to learn how to do it better so that you can feel stronger with it, as it is really, really important as you're trying to build strength and move, and as well as a variety of other things. I mean, it can help with stress and anxiety, anything really where you need breathing, which is pretty much all the time, right? Is that you want to be thinking about using your diaphragm. That is our breathing muscle, and that is how we're going to feel that expansion through the belly and not as much in our chest. As we breathe into our chest, we're kind of contracting, and then that's making us potentially a little more stressed, feel a little bit more anxious and maybe even really tight up in our upper body. So breathing through your belly is going to help with all of those things. Take just a couple more breaths here. And then I'm going to have you guys move up to a wall or a flat surface that you can lie on the ground and have your feet up against the wall. So if I were to do that, it's going to look like this. I'm going to lie on my back on my mat, and I'm going to bring my feet right up to the wall here. So my knees and my ankles are in line. I'm comfortably lying here. This is not uncomfortable in any way. And you're just going to continue your breathing here. So breathing in through your belly, filling the air in, and then pushing out, really contracting through the belly. And as you are here, just begin to pay attention to what is happening in your body. You're settling into your back, maybe a little bit more pressure into different areas. Just checking in with the ground, checking in with how that is in contact with your back. If you are uncomfortable, moving in any way that will help you from feeling uncomfortable. And then I want you to bring your attention to your feet. Your feet are up against the wall comfortably, and just notice where you have pressure in your feet. Take a minute here, paying attention. Do you feel it in your toes? Do you feel it in your heel, the ball of your foot, the outside, the inside? Where do you feel that pressure? Once you've determined where you feel that pressure, I want you to just think about imagining trying to make a perfect footprint. So picturing a footprint in the sand. We've got the heel, the outside edge of the foot, the ball of the foot, and all of the toes. I want you to think about making that with your foot. Now, you may need to bring your foot higher or lower or more out to the side or more to the center, but just noticing how you're feeling with your feet up against the wall and recognizing where those pressure points are. Is it hard to make that footprint? If it's hard to make that footprint on the wall, like that perfect footprint with the sand, as I said, you're likely having just as much of the struggle doing that while standing as you are while you are up against the wall right now. And we will get to standing a little bit later, so just continuing to pay attention to this and recognizing how your feet are in contact with the ground or within the wall. Think about putting pressure into your right foot into the wall. Notice what that does. Begin to lighten that pressure and then push through the left foot. You're not necessarily lifting one foot off of the wall or anything. You're just putting pressure into one foot. Release the left foot, just lightening it up, still on the wall, and then put more pressure into your right foot. Again, just putting pressure in there. Begin to notice what happens up your legs as you do that. Do you notice engagement? Do you notice a stretch? Do you notice a relaxation anywhere when you release it? Keep going back and forth between the two, continuing to put pressure in one foot and then the other. Maybe think about pushing both feet in now and think about screwing your feet in. So you understand now what it feels like to press one foot in, press both feet in. With your feet on the wall, think about screwing your feet in. They're not actually going to move anywhere, but thinking about rotating, creating torque. So it ends up being a push and it looks like maybe a little bit of a rotation, but not very far. And with that, you should feel the arch of your foot lift. You should feel yourself kind of go more to the outside of the foot. Maybe thinking about pushing in through your toes as you're here, pushing into your big toe. Does this help you make that footprint that I discussed earlier a little bit easier? Now you may be feeling that your legs are working more and it's a little harder to hold this position, but are you able to get into it? Again, just paying attention. Yes, Erin.
There's just some comments about what if you can't get onto the floor? Is there any variation?
Yeah. Yeah, if you can use like your bed and you can go up against the wall, you can also sit on a chair and just put your feet on the ground and just kind of be aware of what your feet are doing on the ground. That would be fine too, if you can kind of figure out how to do the pressure while you're seated in a chair. Otherwise, you can, like I said, go into your bed. If you have your bed, it's up against the wall. You can just lie on your back in your bed and put your feet up on the wall. If it's about lying on your back and that doesn't work for you, like I said, is you can do this seated with your feet on the ground. You can also do this standing. We're going to go through a variety of different ways to kind of check in with your feet pressure and your awareness. So if this one doesn't work for you, that's okay. As we go through these, if you have something that you can sit on or lie on, you can always use that in the space of what a floor would be. Okay. Hope that answers questions. If not, please just say something in the Q&A again and just let me know like what your limitations are, and I can give you a little bit more of a specific idea of what you could do. So thinking about with the feet up against the wall, and again, just recognizing where those pressures are. So now, just again, getting back in touch with your back and what's happening with your back up against the wall or up against the ground. And if you are sitting in a chair, you can just kind of recognize what's happening with your back up against the chair or up against the wall. You can recognize where you are sitting. How does it feel to sit on that chair? That is something that we will get into a little bit later. So just paying attention to where you are feeling the pressure of the ground, the feedback from the ground, and starting to recognize what that feedback feels like. It doesn't have to have a specific word or phrase or anything that makes sense to anybody but you. So some people, feelings come in a phrase that might be a color or a number, which might to some people sound like, what? Why would you have a color or a number? But that's how some people's brains work, and that's okay. So if you say, oh, this feels green, or this feels like number 4, that's okay. I don't need to understand what green or number 4 feels like. Again, coming back to that awareness building, the more you understand what green or number 4 feels like, the more you can use that, the more you can call on it, and the more aware you will be of it in your day-to-day life, which will help you with more strength and more efficiency. So just continuing to lie here for another minute and just breathe into this. And then we're going to go through a body scan. So at this point, you can bring your feet off of the wall, unless you're feeling like, oh, this feels great. You can stay there. Otherwise, you can bring your feet off the wall and come into any comfortable position. I recommend, if it's available to you, to lie on your back, either with your legs extended or your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Probably legs extended if that's available to you. If your low back bothers you, either put something under your knees or bend your knees, put your feet on the floor. You can also do this lying on your bed. You can also do this sitting in a chair. You can do this in any position that you want to. The more feedback you have available to you, like with the ground, like with the wall, the easier it'll be for you to kind of touch base with that thing. So if you have the ability to lie flat, I do think that that would be the best option. But again, it's not required. Do what feels right to you. So as you're here, return back to your breathing. Thinking about that diaphragmatic breathing. Having your hands at your side. I want you to be checking in. Are you able to call on that diaphragmatic breathing without having one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly? Are you able to know that that's what you're doing and check in with it? As you are checking in with the breath, I want you to begin to really settle down any additional movements that you have going on in your body at the moment. Really trying to be still and in the moment. As we go through this, you will be fully present in your body. The more you can be present in your body, the more use you have of it, the more you can do with it, the more you can be aware when something's wrong and when you need to make a shift. So as you're lying here, first start by thinking about your big toes. Just being aware of them, noticing if you can just feel them, be aware of that they're there, or are you kind of having a hard time even checking in with your toes right now? If you are having a hard time checking in with that, begin to think about wiggling your big toe. Just see what you can do with it. Once you've checked in, you're like, oh, there it is. I found it. Stop that movement. And again, try to just be aware of what's going on in that big toe as you're here. Maybe thinking about the right big toe and then your left big toe. Then begin to think about all the other toes. Again, if you're struggling to check in with those, begin to wiggle your toes and just see what that feels like. Make that connection in your brain that for right now needs movement to make the connection. The more you can make that connection without movement, the better. So as you're here, and if you're wiggling your toes, slow that down and see if you can check in with all of your toes here. You notice how they're moving or how they're staying and how they could be moving, how they're feeling. Do you notice anything different side to side? Now, as you move up, we're going to focus primarily on the right leg to start. So I want you to think about the ball of your foot. So we just had the feet up against the wall. So we've checked into the toes. Now thinking about the ball of the foot. Recognize if you can feel that. If you can't feel that, again, think about moving your toes. Maybe curl your foot, open it up, really trying to stretch the arch and move it. And see how that feels. And then once you've settled into that, slow down the movement and just check in with the ball of the foot, recognizing how it feels, maybe how it feels connected to the toes, maybe how it feels different or similar to what you expected, or just being aware of it, just feeling it and just recognizing, not having any judgment, not having any thought other than that's what it feels like. Maybe it feels blue. Maybe it feels number 6, whatever it is. Now moving up to the arch of the foot. Checking in with the arch of the foot, feeling what is going on there. And again, if you can't check in, if you can't get that awareness without moving, add a little bit of movement. Once you felt it, slow that down to a stop, and then notice what it feels like without movement. Moving your way to your heel. If you are lying on your back with your legs extended, you are now recognizing the first feedback point. If you haven't been moving, you'll feel the base of your heel on the ground. If your feet have been flat on the ground, you may have been able to use this feedback for a little while. Recognizing how the ground feels against the back of your heel, but also how your foot feels right now. You are now probably more aware of your right foot than you have been in a long time or maybe ever. So just recognize what's happening in your foot, whether it's from the feedback or just general feeling. Think about the bottom of the heel. So not just where it's touching the ground, but the underside where you would be pushing into the ground if you were standing. Work your way up your ankle a little bit so you're on your Achilles tendon, so the back of your heel. Again, maybe in contact with the ground, maybe not. And just recognizing what that feels like. Wrapping around to the front of the ankle and feeling the top of the foot. Going to the outside edge of the foot and then to the inside edge of the foot. We have now gone through the entire right foot. So really try to be as aware as you can of the individual little pieces, but also the foot as a whole. How are all these things working together and affecting each other? The more you can make these connections, the more you can use them to your advantage to work together, or separate them, which will also allow you to use it to your advantage and do things more effectively and more efficiently because you're doing them correctly rather than just compensating and doing the movement. Moving up to your ankle, thinking about around the front of the ankle, the side, the middle, and the back. Connecting that to the foot and just feeling it all in connection and how it all works together. Beginning to move up the front of your shin, slowly working your way up. Imagining it's almost like there is like a slow movement of your hand up your leg, and you are just checking in with each little spot that you touch up your shin. Move to the side of your shin, more towards the side of the calf muscle. Feeling what's happening there. And then to the other side. And then wrapping around the back, working your way up your calf muscle. Thinking about getting into the knee, the back of the knee, the sides and the front, thinking about maybe the kneecap individually. So you're feeling the joint as well as the kneecap, feeling all of those things working together. Feeling the connection from your knee all the way down to your toes at this point. Being even more aware of this leg now. More checked in, more available to listen to what the leg is saying, which might sound crazy, but our bodies do talk to us. And the more we can listen to what they're saying, the better, the more we can give them what they need. And our bodies really, really understand what they need. Our brains are what get in the way a lot of the time. So the more you can listen to the true need of your body, the more you will get those answers. Working up through the thigh, through the front of the thigh, all the way up to the hip. Taking that slow, methodical approach up the leg, trying to check into each individual little piece as you work your way up. Wrap to the side of the thigh. Same idea, slowly taking your time working the way up. The back of the thigh and the inside of the thigh. Feeling fully aware of your right leg now. Really check into what is happening. What are you feeling? Or is there discomfort? Is there happiness in there? Does it feel good? Does it feel at ease? Does it feel tight? What does it feel to you? Just recognizing, just being aware. Taking your attention over to the left side, being aware of what the other foot is doing. The bottom of the foot, the ball of the foot. Working towards the arch of the foot and the heel. We've gone through that right side, so kind of taking the same path that you did on the right, on the left. Recognizing the bottom of the foot and how that feels, either against the air or against the ground. Do you feel warm? Do you feel cold? How does it all feel? And then as you work your way around to the top of the foot, and then towards the ankles, wrapping around up through the shin, the sides of the shin and into the calf, and into the back of the calf. wrapping around the knee, the back of the knee, the sides of the knee, the front, and the kneecap. Begin to work your way up through the front of the thigh, the sides, and the back. Beginning to work your way all the way up towards the hip and just checking in with what your body is feeling, checking in with your legs and what is going on there. Now working into your hips. So as we feel around the hips, the back, the sides, the front, notice how they are in contact either with the ground or a chair or anything. And then slowly work your way up towards the mid back or the low back, excuse me. Feeling your low back in contact with the ground, if you're lying down. Feeling your sides and the base of your stomach. And then slowly working up your mid back to your belly, your low ribs, your upper back, feeling your shoulder blades up against wherever you are, wrapping around through your chest, feeling everything in contact with each other, everything working together here. Bringing your attention to your shoulders, working into your right side, your right arm all the way down your arm, down into your fingertips. So recognizing all of that connection, and then switching over to your left side, feeling the connection all the way from the shoulder down to your fingers, wrapping around the arm. Working your way back towards your chest, thinking about your neck, the base of your skull, the back of your head, the top of your head, the sides, your ears, and just everything in your face. Maybe your lips together, the air that's coming in through your nose. Noticing your teeth, are they clenching or are they just relaxed? Your tongue, is it to the top of your mouth or is it, again, also relaxed anywhere? Just take a couple more breaths here and then just recognizing how everything is feeling. Keep breathing. And then when you are ready, we are going to come up from there. So now you've had a decent check-in with what is going on in your body. And I just want to see if there are any questions. It doesn't look like we have any, but Erin, do you see any that would be worth going over here?
No question really, but one that just noted biofeedback training, that they've done that before, and this seems similar.
Oh, awesome. Yes, it's definitely, yes, that's essentially what we're doing is we're really trying to build up the awareness so that your body and your brain can kind of talk back and forth to each other, which is really going to help you build your ability to do things. So absolutely awesome. So now, as you are now in contact with your body, you are building up that awareness even more. You've had that connection. I want you all to stand up if you are not already standing. So I'm going to come back to my mat here. And so you don't need a mat or anything. You can do this in any way. You can hold on to things if that would be helpful, whatever you need to do. So as we're standing here, let's now get in contact with our feet again. What is happening with your feet here? Just recognizing where those pressure points are. Does it feel the same as when your feet were up against the wall or when you were seated or wherever you kind of put yourself in? Recognize, does it feel solid or do you feel unsteady? If you feel unsteady, think about using that screwing in sensation that we did earlier with the feet up against the wall. So I'm thinking about pushing my feet down and screwing them in. And if you can see what I'm doing here, my knees are here, the front of my knees are here. As I screw my feet in, my knees rotate out a little bit. So they go from here to here. My arches lift. I feel pressure in my big toe. I don't want to like let my big toes off to the side. I want to kind of keep my big toe on the ground. And I'm screwing the feet in, lifting the arch. As you do that, you might feel more of your legs turn on, maybe more into your upper hip, outer glute area. That should begin to turn on as you're screwing your feet in. As you do that, notice, do you have more balance? Do you feel like you are able to stabilize yourself? Or does that irritate something? Does that not feel good? Sometimes if people don't quite understand the screwing of the feet in, sometimes their knees will irritate them because they're trying to roll their ankles out, but without rotating the knees out. So that's why if you can think about the push down and screw out, the knees will rotate out a little bit, which will help support any discomfort that you may be having in your inner knee when you try to do that initially. So as you're standing here, maybe begin to put pressure onto one leg and notice what that does. Then put pressure into the other leg. Notice what that does. So now we're kind of just going rocking side to side, where you're kind of putting pressure in one foot, loosening up on the other, and then putting pressure in the other foot and loosening back up. So as I shift back to my left foot, instead of just putting the pressure down there, I want to think about making it active. So I'm going to think about pulling this hip in and really rooting through the ground here. So now I'm really stacked on top of this foot. I'm still getting that rotation. I'm still thinking about really trying to activate through that leg. But now all of a sudden I'm much more active. So notice what that does. Notice how that affects your stability. It might be hard. You might feel like, wow, that's really burning. That's really challenging. But do you feel a little bit more stable? Do you feel like it's helping you here? Then transferring weight back onto that right foot, letting myself just get here to start. And then engage that hip and putting all of my weight over this leg, which is going to strengthen me up and hold me up nice and tall. Do that a few more times, switching back to the left, pull this hip in, nice and strong. Notice the line of engagement here in your body. What does this feel like? Recognizing this feeling. Just because I look like the way that I look right now doesn't mean it's necessarily going to look exactly like the way you look right now. Whether it's because you have some arching into your low back and you need to figure that out a little bit more, or you have some rounding into your shoulders and you need to figure that out some more. That's okay. Just notice, what do you feel like? How do you feel like you can get tall here? Do you notice how that feels, how you can feel as though you're standing up and lifting up from the ground? Putting pressure back into that right foot, engage that hip, hold yourself up. As we put that pressure down into that right foot, recognize how it brings the pressure back up to us. So, and if I'm relaxed here, to if I'm engaged here. Not putting pressure, I'm just letting myself stand here. Gravity is making me in contact with the ground, but that's the only pressure that I'm putting into the ground. Now I'm putting more pressure, hugging this hip in, and now I can stand up really tall and feel really strong and tall here. Let's do one more to each side. So back to the left, hugging in, nice and tall. And then to the right, nice and tall. You can try this with balancing. So if I was going to go to the left, nice and tall, bring my knee up. Then I'm going to step it back down to the right, nice and tall, bring my knee up. Again, you can hold on to something if that's too much, but you still feel like you could do it while you're holding on. By all means, try it, but don't let your holding on be a complete crutch. Use it as help, not as a crutch. So if you're holding on and you're doing this and you're just like falling into it and you're using your hands too much, I would prefer you don't lift your leg up and you just focus on nice and strong alignment there, nice and strong positioning over that foot. If you can do that and then bring that knee up, even when holding on, that's okay. You can do that. You're looking for a challenge, but not too much of a challenge where you can't pay attention. So it's more about paying attention. It's more about checking in and being aware of what's going on as you do it. Now, thinking about as we are now standing, just beginning to walk around a little bit. So wherever you are walking around, you can just walk in circles, it's fine, or back and forth, whatever works for you is fine. But I just want you to be paying attention to where do you feel contact with the ground while you walk. Now we've done this whole body scan. We've checked in with your feet in multiple different positions. What are you noticing here? Take a little time to kind of check in with where your feet are coming in contact with the ground. So that foundational feedback. What you're feeling into your ankles, your calves, the rest of your legs, the rest of your body. If you make any adjustments, what does that do? And I don't necessarily want you to be making adjustments all the time while you're walking. That being said, what do adjustments do to change your walk? One thing to really pay attention to while you're walking is your toes. Do you press off of your big toe while you walk? Or do you feel as though you walk off the ball of the foot? So not on the toe, but the ball of the foot. If you press off the ball of your foot, which I'm going to guess the majority of people are, do you or can you press into the big toe to push off? And if you do, what happens? Just notice. It might feel weird. You might feel springy. You might end up doing something like this where you step forward and you try to figure out how to press off the big toe, and that might feel a little silly, and that's okay. Just check in, just be aware, just allow these things to happen and understand what's happening. Try to feel them. Try to make these connections. The more connections you can make, the better you're fostering this awareness, which is really going to strengthen your ability to do a lot of different things. Continue to walk around just for another moment. And yes, Erin, go ahead while people are finishing walking around.
Yeah, perfect. So someone is saying their foot is tired, their knee is sore, and then fused, and left ankle fused, so unable to flex. So if there's any adaptations there, but should people be feeling super sore? And if they're sore, should they stop? What should they do?
Yeah, so basically, if your feet are feeling tired, you don't like that's okay. If they're feeling sore, like pain, we don't want that. So it's really kind of depends on what that sore means to you. So if I'm working with somebody and they say, "Oh, I feel sore," I ask them, "Well, what does that mean? What is sore? Is it you just feel like you worked that muscle, or do you feel like you're hurting yourself? Do you feel like it's really uncomfortable past the point of a challenge? It's not just a challenge. If that's the case, then I would say don't do it. The knee piece that you mentioned where you said like the foot was getting sore, if that's tired sore, that's okay. If your knee is bothering you, do what you need to not have your knee bother you, because that's not really what we're trying to get to. That's not really something that we want to be making happen more. So trying to kind of avoid any pain if you can. And if you are finding that you are struggling with that, I definitely recommend going to see either your doctor or physical therapist or somebody that can kind of help give you either some strengthening exercises or things to do that will help you maintain and manage that discomfort if that's happening every time that you walk. Uh, if you're finding that you're just like making adjustments as you walk and that's why you're having knee pain, don't make the adjustments. If you notice that you're having knee pain just because you're paying more attention, then that's a time to, again, go talk to a PT or a doctor. And it looks like there was just a couple other questions I'm just going to go over here. Walking on the inside of the arch. So that is definitely something where I was saying how you want to screw your feet in. That's when you're standing. If you're doing it when you're walking, there's a lot of different aspects that might be impacting that. It could come all the way from your hip, your knee, your ankle, your foot. It could come all the way up higher too. There's a variety of things that it could be. So if you're not able to figure out how to make that adjustment, working with someone that will be able to, like a PT, a personal trainer that's focused on functional movement, they're going to be able to help you learn how to do those things. And again, strengthen certain things or mobilize certain things so that you're able to move better. But that definitely is something that is probably a multi-piece thing, is when you're walking on the inside of the arch. Okay. So if you are thinking good, you're walking around on your feet and you're just kind of noticing and you're just paying attention, trying to avoid any pain, avoid any discomfort, just checking in.
Real quick,
So
there
we're
were just
gonna
a
just,
couple,
yeah.
sorry, there were just two that came in about the big toe.
Oh,
Do we
sure,
want to
yeah.
be pushing off our big toe? Off of the big toe?
Yeah.
So
Yes, that being said, I don't want people to try to adjust their walk a lot of the time. Like, you want to be trying to walk normal and you want to strengthen things in a training session or mobilize things in a training session that will eventually begin to adjust your walk. So, although you can use it as a check in and just being aware, it's not necessarily something that I would want you to go around like walking down the street and practicing this constantly, because likely you're probably going to compensate in one way or another, and then it might pull you in a different direction. So, trying to make sure that you are doing the right things that would facilitate your ability to push off of your big toe without forcing it. And anything else that you see there, Erin?
I mean, there are a couple more, but I wasn't sure if there's one more thing you want to
Let's
get
see.
to.
Okay, let me look
Fair
here.
amount.
Sorry. Yeah, let me just look here. I just have like a couple more things that we can go over. Right wrist fused. That's okay. If your right wrist is fused and you had hand in here and here, you can kind of do this. You can do whatever. It's more about just getting the feedback than it is about having your hand flat. And if the ankle is also fused, then that is something that you just do the best you can. I mean, there are things when structural things get in the way, it's challenge, right? You kind of have to figure out what the best thing to do for you is. So all of this stuff that I'm going over is just to build the awareness. It's just general practice. But really, when it gets down to you as an individual, there's a lot of other details. You are complex. Each and every one of you is complex. And so saying that there's one way to do things or another is hard for me to say without seeing you as an individual, because there are so many different aspects that impact it. So finding ways that it works for you is really the most important thing, that you can feel like you're strong, that you can feel like you're doing the things that you need to, that you don't feel pain. That's ultimately what matters. Okay. Let's see here. It is okay to use a supporting band around the knee when exercising, but if you're finding that you're having pain when you're doing that, I would recommend that you talk to a doctor. Let's see. Just wanting to see if there's anything else. Uh, when should work with a personal trainer versus physical therapist? Great question. It really depends on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with general strength, like you just are feeling weak, or you're just feeling general aches and pains because of the way that you work, or just things that you do repetitively, a personal trainer might be the person for you. If you have a specific injury, a physical therapist is definitely who you would want to go see. A personal trainer is not going to be dealing with an injury. They're going to be, so I focus with people on strengthening things that would help support their posture, support their day-to-day life and activities that they want to be able to do, focus on goals that they want to be able to achieve. And so it's more about a preventative and focus on building rather than physical therapy. A lot of the times, and everybody's different, a lot of the times is focusing on rehabbing an injury and preventing something very specific. Whereas when I focus on people, it's a full body approach. And so we're coming at it from like a more holistic approach of just hitting everything rather than looking at the specific things. Both are very important and both are relevant. It just depends on what you're dealing with. Okay. So I'm going to finish answering questions for now. We're just going to do a couple more things. And then if at the end we still feel like that there are some questions, we can go over those. Okay. So just a couple quick things to continue to go over the pressure and how you can continue to build just that feedback and understanding of what's going on in your feet, which will give you an idea if you need to go and see somebody, to work with somebody, if you're feeling like you can't figure this stuff out. So I'm going to come back to my chair here, my bench. I'm going to sit down on the bench and I'm going to focus on my feet in the ground and how I'm sitting on the bench here. So just recognizing the feet. I'm going to think about untucking and tucking my pelvis here. So I'm going to kind of rock back and forth, and you should feel two hard bones, like or bony spots kind of at the base. So tucking my pelvis, untucking my pelvis. Now I'm going to try to keep my upper body stable as I untuck and tuck. And as you're doing this directly under your hips, you should feel two bony spots. Find the center of that bony point, and then notice how you can sit up nice and tall. This is a really good sitting posture. So push down directly into the center of those sit bones and sit up nice and tall. Notice what that does. What do you feel through the rest of your body? You should notice a little bit more engagement. You should notice a little bit more awareness. Maybe you're a little bit more awake. Maybe you feel a little more confident. Just recognizing how all of that feels. So now you know what's happening in the upper body and how you want that to be feeling. So now we're going to stand up. And I want you to think about screwing those feet in that we discussed, which again should rotate the knees out. If you're struggling to do that, you don't quite understand what I'm saying. There is, and in fact, I will have Aaron either put my information in the chat or send it via the message so that we can get it to you guys so that you can reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, it looks like she's putting in the chat. Perfect. So if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, another professional near you should be able to help you with these things. So think about screwing my feet in, knees rotating out. And then I'm going to think about trying to get my upper body to be in awareness, just like I was seated there. And just notice this whole flow of engagement. Notice yourself stacked on each other. Just notice how you're feeling here. Again, it might feel more energized. You might feel more confident. You might feel stronger. Maybe something aches. Maybe something doesn't feel good. If that's the case, back off from this. Don't do that. Anytime something hurts, it's likely a sign that your body's saying that's not okay. I always trust your body over my directions. Your body knows what you need more than I do. And that's why I ask a lot of questions, because if you can tell me what your body is saying, I can direct you based on what your body is needing. Okay. So that is pretty much it. There are other ways to continue to build your awareness. There's lots of different things, But basically the biggest thing is just paying attention, being aware when you're doing exercise or when you're doing movement, doing it with intention, doing it with purpose, rather than just doing it to do it and see what it results in. Okay, so we'll go over, let me see if there's any other questions here. Let's see. And you might notice that you feel one foot more than the other. That's okay. It's just something to continue to pay attention to. And support of good feet correction and strengthening techniques. Yes, I definitely feel like working on strengthening your feet, strengthening anything is good. You don't, using something like arch support, for instance, is good when you can't pay attention, when you need the support, when you can't be working on it and strengthening it. You don't want to rely on it 100% of the time. That's why building strength is really, really helpful when you're trying to focus on that. And the bottom of your arch support is going to affect all the way to the top of your head. I have seen it multiple times where when you do something with the arch, you'll feel something at the top of your head. So it's very important to have as much support there as you are meant to. And everybody's going to be slightly different. Let's see. If there are tears in the knees, I recommend that you going into see somebody to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Basically, if there's pain, don't do it. Like, it's not, you want to either be directed to make sure that you're doing it correctly so that you're managing your pain as best as you can, because there might be certain things that you can't avoid it. Like, for instance, if you have arthritis, you can't necessarily avoid that. So it's making sure that you're doing it as safe as possible. With the screwing of the feet in, imagine you have medicine caps under your feet, but you actually don't, right? You're on the ground. So if you're thinking about with the medicine cap, you push down and you twist it, right? But because there is no medicine cap under your foot, you can't actually twist it out. You're just putting pressure and then creating that twisting sensation, but it's not actually rotating out. It's just creating that sensation, which lifts your arch a little bit. So you push down, and you can use your hand too. So if you were to say, push down here, so if I were to push down and rotate out, that's the same idea. Relax, push down, rotate out. So imagining this is my arch, relax, arch is lifted, I'm pressing down and screwing that medicine cap out. Okay. I think that is it. Anything else you see or want to go over, Erin?
I mean, we're at 11, and I think, we are going to consider doing more of these. So if there's certain topics that you really wanted to dive in more to, let us know in the event survey. That's a great place for us to reference as we think about future classes. So thanks for taking the time to do that. I put a bunch of stuff into the chat, including the last 3 classes recordings and a link to Julia's YouTube page and exercises. So check out those. And then today's recording will be shared in the next couple of days. So thank you everyone for joining us. If you're at every class, amazing. If you're at a couple, wonderful. But thanks again. And thank you so much, Julia. This was great. Take care, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.